Hey everybody, I just realized I need to make some more of these or you're going to catch up with me pretty quick. Um, so let's see, the first thing I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about politics and the different disciplines we're looking at. I don't, the next set of readings is going to be Marx, Durkheim, Weber, and I know that I already approached politics a little bit. Please figure out how to put your personal red-blue feelings aside so that you can encounter these authors on their own. And I think you can do that when you walk in and go to read Marx. Sure that you hate communism, you're not going to get the whole picture. And similarly, if you go to read Marx, sure that communism is great, you're not going to see the whole picture. The same is true of Smith. We're not reading Smith, but I've told you a little bit about him, and you can find what you need. It's true of all of them. Okay, that said, I wanted to say a little bit more about where politics fits into the disciplines themselves. So it's understood, I think, by just about everybody that academics tends to be a little bit more liberal in their political leaning, which in and of itself doesn't really bother me at all. The military tends to be a little more conservative in their political leaning, and that doesn't cause trouble. It just means that that's something you got to be aware of when you're dealing with whomever it is you're dealing with. Now, sociology politically has ebbed and flowed on their level of liberalism over time. But right now it tends to be strongly liberal, strongly blue in American terms. If you go back to the 20s, 30s, 40s, there was when you're looking at the Chicago school, there was also a development of social work at the same time. And with the Hull House and all of that. And that was right, in the same intellectual milieu. And so there was an activist side of sociology even then. At the same time, there have also been proponents of conservatism in sociology. And by the time you get to the 40s, 50s, and into the 60s, that conservative part was really, it was focusing on how things hold together. How you try and keep deviance at bay. And I think I mentioned a couple of videos ago a little bit about family structure. Well, those conservative sociologists looked at the family structure and they said, okay, so men are the instrumental part of the family, women are the nurturing part of the family. A two-parent family is the best way to raise kids, and they took that as a given. And so, if you want to build a great society, according to them, you should build it on these foundations. Similarly, William Julius Wilson was a sociologist and politician in the, let's say 70s and 80s. He was still around even in the 90s. But he had this idea of defining deviance down, which was ends up being conservative in its interpretation. But his whole argument came down to, well, if we in a high control society, you are going to have punishment and strictures for people doing smaller things, and things like adultery or children out of wedlock, to go with the family sociology perspective there. And by the time you say, well, adultery is not so terrible, and divorce, maybe that's okay, and children out of wedlock, that's not really a problem. You're not saying those things are deviant anymore, so the definition of deviance is coming down. Well, at some point, you have a much more unruly society because nothing is really deviant. Now that's a deviance is a whole fun course, um, and we can talk about that more if you guys want to. But you can kind of see then that focus on control and deviance sounds an awful lot like just, we need more cops in our regular political thing. So it's definitely a conservative vibe. At the same time, you also have sociologists who were studying deviance, again, for instance, who weren't approaching it from a perspective of this person is bad. They were approaching it from a perspective of, well, society says this is bad. So you go back to 60s and 70s, homosexuality, for instance. If you study it with the assumption that there's not necessarily anything wrong with it, so how does society define this as deviant and understand it as deviant? What are the repercussions on the person? You can see that that's a more liberal, a more open-minded, a more tolerant approach towards that individual who happens to be gay. If you're coming from the other side, you're going to look at that and you're going to say, no, that's bad behavior, period. And it's not okay that the person's this way. And it certainly doesn't match that ideal family that we were talking about a few minutes ago. So there's always been this, currents within sociology. And when it comes to who you're going to read, Durkheim wouldn't have been a conservative in his time. And in fact, I think I'm 94% sure that he was a part of the Socialist Party. But because he's trying to study how society holds together, and because the people who followed him in their in chronologically, people who became Durkheimians, there we go, are the structural functionalists. They end up being conservative by our definition, and that's the conservative wing of sociology. Not very popular right now, but I still like them. And then you have Marx, who was always a more than a liberal, a radical. The root of the word radical is rad, like radish, which is itself is a derivation of root. So that's kind of funny, the root of the word. And for the future perspective that Marx had, he was a radical because he really wanted to get to reorganizing the basic economy from the bottom up. That would be a radical change, which is why Marx and the neo-Marxists after him would have been radicals. At least for the communist part. And as time passed, you had the structural functionalists, these are going to be guys like Parsons, in the mid-century, and they were studying how society worked. They wanted to understand, what levers to push and pull to make things work better. And you had the scientific management people who were a part of sociology. They wanted to know how to make factories work better. And then coming out of the 60s, and a sociology conservative is not like today's conservative, but coming out of the 60s, you end up with C. Wright Mills. We'll talk a little bit about him later. Berg and Luckman, which we're going to talk about in a little bit as well. I always felt like Berger and Luckman were pretty neutral, but C. Wright Mills is well, don't worry about him. We'll talk about him. But what you're doing is that period you start to swing back into a more liberal perspective, and as a discipline, that's where the discipline kind of stands today. Like I said, I don't think that's necessarily a problem. It just means that when you read modern sociologists or listen to them, you understand where they're coming from. Everyone's got values and a basic foundation from which they operate, and it's just good to know what it is. And for these guys, it happens to be vote Democratic. Now, That's sociology, and sociology is, like I said, a little bit on the liberal side. When it comes to the disciplines, the one that stands most against that politically would be the economists. And economists, modern economists, tend to, and I can't say I'm an economics theorist, but modern modern economists are the ones who are most likely to embrace market, let's say, ideology. Maybe not absolutely free markets, but they do believe in markets and they do believe in how things work. Well, that's where Adam Smith comes in with. He's the one that came up with the idea of the free hand of the market. That's his notation. And so, when you start talking about things that tend to be conservative, maybe they care about social issues, maybe they don't. But when it comes to what we understand as economically conservative, that's these guys. They believe in freer trade. They believe in letting people negotiate their salaries. They believe in the government staying out of the economics because it slows down or distorts the markets. So their fundamental faith is that individuals making decisions in a market with minimal regulation and minimal parameters is the best way for us to have a good society. Clearly, that's a conservative perspective. And so, and that there's not a problem. That's their perspective. But when you talk to them, when you read their work, it's good to know where they're coming from. And so I started this today saying that when you encounter these theorists, these writers, I want you to be able to put your own political feelings, red-blue feelings, on the shelf so that you can encounter them where they're at. To close this one, I'm going to say, as you think about where people are, it's good to keep in mind their perspectives and not just discount them because of who they are, and not just discount them because of who you are. Because look, if you're a flaming commie, a flaming radical, the question you have to ask yourself is, why are people who are just as smart as I am, maybe smarter, who are more well-learned than I am, why do they believe in free markets? Like, why would a reasonable person think that? And the only way you're going to get that is by reading these guys' work in a fair light. Similarly, the other way around. Our political culture right now is really toxic, and when someone on the right is saying, "Oh, I can't stand," when someone on the right is sure that everything coming from the left is evil and crazy, well, that's self-serving, right? If you're on the right, you need to ask yourself, okay, but why would someone, again, just as smart or smarter than me, more well-learned than me, why would that person come to a different conclusion? And you're not going to improve your thinking if you can't give not just your writers a fair read, but the other side's writers a fair read. And if you really work on opening your mind, you'll recognize that this liberal conservative red blue dichotomy is kind of bullshit. In fact, there are quite a few different ways to interpret all of the things that we care about in social theory. There are a lot of different approaches to morality. There are a lot of different approaches to ethics. There's a lot of different approaches to economics, a lot of different approaches to to political structure, to governance, to policy, and collapsing everything into a false dichotomy of my side good, your side bad, is it's easy, it's seductive, that's why we do it, but it's not befitting of college-educated people who are trying to understand this stuff and get to be stronger. Okay, so that's good for that one.